So this is how to run through an excellent cupping. The first thing you're going to want to do is to grind your coffee basically immediately before you're ready to start the cupping. I use a flush cup, which is just a couple grams of coffee to run through the grinder before each new set of coffee, and that way you purge any old grounds out of the way through that grinder. Once you've done that, go ahead and bring your sample set to the table and set up your cupping in front of you. In this case, Doris just has 5 cups of 1 coffee sample. And it's important to have enough of these cups, and that way if there's a potential defect or inconsistency, we can know which one in the set is responsible for it. She's also set herself an empty cup, and that's going to be used for rinse water later. Once this is ready, the first step of running through a cupping is going to be to take a fragrance evaluation of the dry grounds. In most cases, it's preferred not to touch the cups themselves. This gives you a chance to preview what might be possible in the cup later, and I also find a lot of pleasure in the sweet fragrance of a great coffee. Once your water is up to temperature, about 200 degrees Fahrenheit or 93 degrees Celsius, I like it a little hotter personally, but that's just my preference. You're going to go ahead and start a timer and start pouring water on those dry grounds. Make sure to fill the cup completely, and if you can, do it somewhat quickly, because if you have, let's say, 5 or 10 coffees in your set, you may have to get through them all in a certain amount of time. You're also going to want to go ahead and fill your rinse water cup as well. Once this step is complete, we're going to keep an eye on that timer and wait until the 4-minute mark, which is when we start to break the crust. At the 4-minute mark, you're going to go ahead and break the crust. And what that entails is using a spoon to push back firmly but gently against the crust that's formed at the surface of the cup. 3 times through is the standard measure, and you don't need to go to the bottom of the glass with your spoon. Stay on the surface. Additionally, this will release a lot of trapped volatile aromas. It's a great way to take a secondary aromatic evaluation of the coffee. Also, it will release some steam, and so use caution when breaking the crust because it will be hot. As you can see, you need to completely break the crust on the surface of each cup so that there are no grounds remaining on the surface, and all that is left is a caramel-colored foam at the top. We'll skim this away in just a second. Once you've broken all the cups, we're going to use a technique called skimming to remove that foam from the surface of each cup. It tends to be bitter, and it interferes with the sensory evaluation of the coffee. Doris is using a 2-spoon technique, which is very helpful and can quickly remove the surface foam from the top of each of the cups. You'll also notice that she's rinsing her spoons between each cup, just as she did when she was breaking the crust of the surface. This is going to be a theme that follows us throughout the entire cup. When you're skimming, be careful not to disturb the grounds at the bottom of the cup. You only need to stay on the surface. At this point, your rinse cup is probably pretty dirty, and I usually recommend refreshing the water in the rinse cup. So once the cups are skimmed and your rinse water is refreshed, you're probably going to have to wait for a few minutes until the coffee is cool enough to taste. A lot of people recommend 170 degrees Fahrenheit or about 77 Celsius as a nice temperature to start. For me, that usually means waiting between 10 and 15 minutes after the timer has started. So I usually keep that timer rolling as an indicator of when the cups are going to be ready to cool. Once the coffee is cool enough to taste, we're going to slurp using a spoon. This is a standard practice. You don't have to make it loud if you don't want to. But what it does help us do is introduce a little bit of oxygen and air into the coffee, aspirate it across our palates, helps us taste it better, and cool it down a little bit. You're going to continue rinsing your spoon between each cup when you do it, and you only need to get the coffee from the very surface of the liquid. Most cuppers prefer to spit after each sip, and this helps us avoid over-caffeination. After you've made your first pass on the coffee and had a chance to evaluate on your cupping form, it is often very helpful and usually recommended to make a second and even a third pass on the coffee as it cools off. 20 and 25-minute marks are convenient measurements, but as long as you're able to make a second pass as the coffee is cooling and continues to extract in the cups, you'll get a better insight as to how that coffee reacts to additional extraction percentage as well as cooler temperatures. In my opinion, the best coffees tend to cool really well, so they should continue to retain character and sometimes even improve as they begin to cool. Once you've had a chance to evaluate the coffee fully, describe some of its attributes, you're also going to want to scale or score the coffee using your cupping form. On the SCA cupping form, there are 10 categories, of which 7 are fully scaled on a scale from 6 to 10. In specialty coffee, these eventually correlate to a final cup score out of 100 points. Anything below 70 on specialty coffee score is considered defective, whereas 70 to 79 is considered commercial or commodity grade coffee. 80 points is the benchmark for the beginning of specialty coffee, and we would generally consider 80 to 84 point coffees to be blending quality. Above 84, we begin to see what we'd consider single origin coffees, although this number may vary depending on who's doing the evaluation. Above 88 points is what we would consider super specialty or extremely high quality coffee. In the 90-point range and above, in my opinion, things begin to get a little more subjective, and they are very rare coffees that achieve these very high scores. Typically, group discussion is not encouraged until after the cupping has been completed by all participants. But at this point, it is a good idea to share your thoughts and scores with your fellow cuppers. This is a great way to reach alignment as a team. It also can help you maybe catch something that someone else noticed but you might have missed, and still have time to go back and taste those cups. COVID-19 has changed cupping significantly for many of us, and for me personally, I'm still not sharing cups with any other cuppers. This makes evaluations a little bit complicated and requires a certain degree of trust in your fellow cupping team, which I'm lucky to have. However, if you must share cups or desire to, one safe way to do this is to use the 2-spoon or second cup method as recommended by CQI and SCA. The way that this works is you're going to take a spoon that has never come in touch with a human's lips, including your own, and you're going to dip it just as you would to normally cup, except that instead of bringing it to your mouth, you're going to then place it into a clean cup and slurp from here. You may wish to, in addition to rinsing your spoon, rinse the vessel. The second spoon method works the same way, although I find that this gets a little complicated, can be messy, and also potentially introduces the risk of switching the spoons.